When did a trusted mentor's financial troubles turn out to be a calculated betrayal? Okay, I don't even know where to start with this, but I literally just found out the entire last 2 years and 8 months of my life have been a coordinated, elaborate lie orchestrated by two of the people I trusted most. And I'm currently typing this from the only place I can think of that feels safe, the back corner booth of a 24-hour Starbucks that smells faintly of burnt espresso and desperation. I feel like I'm going to throw up my Talenti gelato, which is all I've eaten in the last 12 hours. My name is Louis O'Connor, 22M, and I'm an atheist trapped in a family so aggressively Catholic they still think yoga is witchcraft. That context is important because it's why I latched onto Mark so hard when I was 19 and why I let my brain just turn off for so long. I needed out. I needed someone who saw me as Louis, not just the son who needs saving. Spoiler alert, Mark didn't see me at all. This whole mess started small, the way these things always do. It wasn't about cheating, or not exactly. It was about money, control, and a level of betrayal that makes me think I need to submit an application to the Olympic Committee for Most Gullible Human. Mark Clark, 58M, God Mark. When I met him, he was this incredibly charming, established actor, a working stage actor, not famous but known in the regional scene. He played the supportive mentor, the older, wiser partner. He was the one who encouraged me to actually finish my associate's degree, even though he also made fun of my student loans constantly. He was, to put it mildly, intense. Looking back, he was a walking, talking red flag parade, but past Louis was too busy being thrilled that someone older actually paid attention to him and knew how to cook a perfect roast chicken. The first 6 months were great. Then the financial troubles started. Mark always had something. A massive, unexpected $347 bill from the gas company. A sudden $85 charge from a plumber for a quick fix that lasted 10 minutes. He never had the cash on hand because, as he always told me, my money is tied up in residuals, Louis. You know how the industry is. I, being a 20-year-old idiot working night shifts at Trader Joe's and trying to pay $1,247 in rent for our apartment 3B, always covered it. I mean, NGL, I was codependent on him. He was my escape from my family, and I was terrified of losing him, so I always said yes. The real problem started about a year ago, right when Mark decided he needed to start managing his star client, a brilliant, up-and-coming actress named Ella Gupta, 22F. Yes, you read that right. Ella is my age. She's 36 years younger than Mark, but she was his client. Ella, who I quickly nicknamed Mill from hell in my head, was instantly attached to Mark, not romantically, but professionally, like a leech to a boat hull. Mark made her sound like this prodigy who needed constant protection. He constantly praised her talent, her drive, her potential. But the instant Ella showed up, I was relegated to the role of apartment cleaner and silent partner. Ella, bless her heart, and I mean that sarcastically, was obsessed with image. She was always talking about her brand and needing investors for her latest artistic venture. She lived a life that screamed trust fund kid, but Mark insisted she was struggling to make ends meet and needed my financial support to stay afloat while she pursued her dreams. Louis, you have a stable job at the grocery store, Mark said, leaning against the counter one Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. watching me put together his IKEA shelves. Ella is about to hit it big. Think of this as investing in our future. We help her now, she helps us later. And I bought it. I was working overtime at Trader Joe's, clocking almost 60 hours a week, and he was taking $200 withdrawals weekly, saying it was Ella's management fee or reimbursement for headshots. I even let him convince me to put our $43.67 grocery bill on my Visa every single week because his bank had a hold on his business account. My checking account balance was constantly hovering near zero, but I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I was supporting an artist. I was supporting my man. Then came the eBay thing. Mark is big into collecting rare movie props, or so he claimed. Last month, he found this listing on eBay for an extremely valuable signed script from a classic film, something he claimed was worth thousands. The listing price was suspiciously low, like ridiculously low. Mark told me he absolutely had to have it, but he needed to set up a totally separate, untraceable account and payment method to snag the deal before the big players noticed. It's a huge score, Louis, trust me, he insisted, pulling me close and giving me that manipulative daddy knows best look that used to melt me. Just let me use your name on the eBay account. It's temporary. You know how sketchy those sellers can be. I don't want them having my personal info. I know. Red flag central. But at this point, my identity was completely wrapped up in his approval. I set up the burner eBay account using an old email, linked my PayPal, and then forgot about it. Mark was the one managing it. 2 weeks ago, everything started to unravel. I was trying to download the latest update on my iPhone 14 and I got that terrifying notification, storage full. I went to delete old photos but ended up scrolling through my recent Zelle transactions trying to figure out why I was always broke. I saw the usual $200 withdrawals to Mark Clark fee, but then I saw 3 strange high-dollar Zelle transactions sent to a recipient named EG Management LLC. One for $750, another for $1,100, and one last one for $980. All labeled prop investment. I felt my chest tighten the way it does right before I panic. Mark swore he barely had any money in Zelle. He always insisted on cash. I asked him about it that night while he was watching some boring documentary on Hulu, and I was trying to calculate how many PTO hours I had left at work to see if I could cover the next $1,247 rent payment. Hey Mark, what's EG Management LLC? I tried to keep my voice casual, but my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the remote. He didn't even look away from the TV. Oh, that's just some internal account stuff, Louis. Transferring funds for Ella's big film project. Tax stuff. Don't worry your pretty little head about it. He used the phrase pretty little head. I saw red, but I held it in. I am not pretty and my head is not little. I just wanted the facts. It's $2,830, Mark, I pressed, keeping my eyes locked on him. That's 3 months of my grocery budget. I just want to know why it's coming out of the account I use for auto pay. He finally looked at me, giving me the Oscar-worthy performance of exasperated mentor. Because I need to keep the money moving, Louis. It's how the big leagues work. You wouldn't understand. Just trust me. You trust me, don't you? And I did the thing I always did. I smiled and nodded while internally screaming because confronting him meant the potential loss of my safe space, and I couldn't go back to Mom's house in Westfield and her endless prayers. I let it go for exactly 3 days. Then I got the notification, the one that blew up everything. It was a PayPal invoice addressed to the burner email I set up. The subject line: final payment due, eBay transaction 739,281 prop purchased. The amount due was listed along with a terrifying fee if the payment was late, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the item description and the sender's name. Item: signed original script, streetcar named Desire. Total $4,500. Sender: Ella G Management. I literally felt the blood drain from my face. Ella G Management LLC, the client. I ran into our shared home office. Mark wasn't there, he was out at a rehearsal. I grabbed his iPad, which he thinks is impenetrable, but I know his password because it's always the date of his first stage performance, August 14, 1985, of course. I immediately went to the burner eBay account. I found the transaction, the $4,500 script. Mark had supposedly bought it. And then I saw the message thread between the buyer, me technically, and the seller. Buyer: me, but Mark, this needs to be fast. I will pay 50% up front. The other 50% must go to a separate, discrete account. My partner cannot know the full value. Seller: Ella G Management. Understood. The item will ship when the first $2,830 investment is confirmed via Zelle. Wait, $2,830. That was the exact total of the Zelle payments I found earlier. The prop investment money I had transferred out of my account and into EG Management LLC. I scrolled down further, my hands shaking so violently I had to set the iPad down for a second. The rage I felt was volcanic. Seller: Ella G Management. Mark, this is getting complex. Are you sure Louis won't question the large Zelle transfers? Buyer: Mark, pretending to be Louis. He's 22 and incredibly trusting. He thinks he's investing in your future. He's codependent on me. As long as I maintain the narrative that you are a struggling artist and he's helping us hit it big, he won't look too closely at the numbers. Just make sure the final PayPal invoice goes to the burner account, not his main email. I didn't even realize I was crying until I tasted the saltiness on my lips. It wasn't just a scam, it was a character assessment. He didn't just steal from me, he explicitly recognized and weaponized my deepest insecurity, my fear of abandonment and my codependency to do it. I was literally shaking, full body shaking. I scrolled down to the last message sent just yesterday. Seller: Ella G Management. The script is ready. When are we hosting the party? I need my money back from the initial listing fee plus the extra $1,000 for the trouble. Buyer: Mark. Next Friday. We'll present the valuable script to the investors and have Louis cover the final catering bill, which he will conveniently reimburse me for. You get your money, I get the praise for securing the investment. Everyone wins except the sucker. I felt numb, absolutely numb. The script was likely a cheap photocopy. The eBay transaction was an elaborate staged transaction between Mark and Ella, 22F, the struggling artist who was apparently managing her own LLC and scamming people on eBay with my money. My money. The money I earned standing on my feet for 9 hours a day at Trader Joe's. I slammed the iPad down, grabbed my keys and the emergency card I keep hidden for gas, and walked out of apartment 3B without looking back. Mark started calling me almost immediately. 27 calls in 1 hour. I checked my iPhone notifications and the screen looked like a disaster zone. I muted him and opened TikTok to watch something mindless, but even a cute cat video couldn't calm the earthquake happening in my stomach. I drove aimlessly for hours in my beat-up 2018 Honda Civic. I ended up driving past my mom's house in Westfield, and the sight of the overly ornate Jesus statue in the front yard made me floor the gas pedal. I couldn't go back there. Instead, I called my sister Shannon. Louis, where are you? It's 2 a.m. Shannon, 25F, answered, voice groggy. They scammed me, Shannon, I whispered, pulling into the Starbucks parking lot. Mark and Ella, they used me for an eBay scam, $4,500, they called me the sucker. There was a moment of silence, then she let out a loud, terrifying noise. Girl, what the fuck, Louis? I knew that old dude was shady. Wait, Ella, his little protege, I'm gonna kill them both. I have proof, I have the messages, they staged the sale, I choked out. Okay, deep breaths, Shannon said, her voice now hard and focused. Where is Mark right now? I don't know. Out. Good, don't go back, Louis, you have to hit them where it hurts. Mark only cares about his reputation in that stupid theater community. You need to tell everyone. Shannon, who is always 5 steps ahead, immediately saw the opportunity for public humiliation. Mark was hosting a small, invitation-only investor reception next Friday for Ella's supposed film funding. He was planning to showcase the rare script and finalize the rest of the investment money. Next Friday, Shannon repeated, a terrifying calm in her voice. He's having that fancy little cocktail party, right? The one where he tells everyone he's a genius manager. Yeah, at the Globe Theater reception space. 5:30 p.m., I mumbled. Perfect, you are going to attend. You are going to look spectacular, and you are going to expose them in front of everyone he has ever tried to impress. You are going to break that codependency by watching his whole world burn. I'll get you a lawyer referral tomorrow, but for now we focus on the performance. I hung up the phone feeling slightly less like a walking corpse but still utterly empty. I went back and forth for hours. Should I just send the messages to the police? Should I just change the locks and block them both? But Shannon was right. Mark took my money, yes, but he also shattered my sense of reality and insulted my intelligence. I owed him nothing. I wanted him to suffer publicly. I decided that Shannon's advice was right. Mark had betrayed my trust and Ella had been the accomplice. I wasn't just getting my money back, I was getting my self-respect back. The plan started formulating in my mind, fueled by the 3 large cups of black coffee it had in the Starbucks. I would show up. I would listen to his lies, and then at the moment of peak self-aggrandizement, I would destroy him. I knew Mark was expecting me to be devastated, hiding, and eventually crawling back because I rely on him for stability and rent. That's why he targeted my codependency. He texted me exactly 3 times 10 minutes ago. Mark, Louis, talk to me. Why aren't you answering? Mark, this is getting ridiculous. I need to know where you are. I'm worried. Mark, I hope you're not overreacting about that Zelle thing. You know I love you. Call me now. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot of the text and sent them to Shannon, typing, ready for next Friday. The next day, Wednesday, I drove back to the apartment, heart hammering but feeling strangely powerful. I knew Mark would be out until late, so I had a 4-hour window. I packed every single thing that was mine, including the good towels. Yes, I was petty, sue me. I changed the Wi-Fi password, blocked his number, and most importantly, I made copies of every single incriminating message and Zelle transfer receipt, saving them to a cloud drive. I even went downstairs and snagged the Ring doorbell footage from last night showing me leaving without any bags, just my keys, confirming that I looked panicked and vulnerable. Then I got a Venmo notification. Ella Gupta had sent a request to my personal account. The amount requested, $150. The note attached, rehearsal dinner, wine and appetizer costs. You owe Mark. My jaw literally dropped. The audacity. They steal thousands and she's requesting $150 for wine she probably didn't even buy. They still think I'm the sucker. I almost screamed. Instead, I stood in the empty apartment, looking at the life I had built on a foundation of lies, and laughed a hard, bitter sound. I didn't pay the request. I didn't text her. I am not letting this play out in the dark. Mark wants to be seen. Ella wants an audience. Fine, they'll have one. I've got 5 days until next Friday, 5:30 p.m. I've used one of my last PTO days to call out of Trader Joe's to prepare. I am currently researching how to effectively project my voice in a large reception hall and debating if I should wear the expensive suit Mark bought me and probably expensed. I think I will. I want him to watch me dismantle his life while wearing his money. I know I should be focused on the legal part, but honestly, right now revenge feels like the only thing keeping my heart beating. But here's the real kicker, the thing that makes me need to know if I'm being an absolute idiot. This morning, right before I left the apartment for good, I checked the final shipping confirmation on the eBay burner account. The rare script was scheduled for delivery to my address, apartment 3B, this coming Monday. The tracking info was active. So they scammed me out of $4,500 for a script they were just sending back to the apartment we shared. Why would they risk the actual physical evidence? And then I saw the note from LG Management, the last text exchange I missed. Seller LG Management, we need to make sure Louis opens the package first. It's the only way to get the reaction we need from him. The reaction they need, what the hell does that mean? What kind of reaction? I have a sinking feeling that this fake $4,500 script they scammed me into buying isn't actually a script at all. I think I know what it is, and if I'm right, next Friday won't just be an exposure. It will be the biggest character development plot twist of Mark's entire miserable life, and I need to be ready. I just hope I can keep my composure until Friday at 5:30 p.m. I just need to know what is in that box before I walk into that confrontation, and that box is scheduled to arrive in 48 hours. Wish me luck, Reddit. I'm going to need it. I'll update you when I open the package. Okay, I am back. I haven't slept properly since I posted part 1. I've been sleeping on Shannon's couch, which smells vaguely of cat hair and old Cheeto dust. But honestly, it's paradise compared to apartment 3B. I spent all of Thursday and Friday trying to act normal at Trader Joe's and failing spectacularly. I almost gave a customer a refund for an item they didn't buy. My manager, bless her soul, just told me to take the weekend off. She saw the dead look in my eyes. Mark has sent me 14 novels disguised as texts. He's moved past "I love you" to "I need you to contact the landlord" to "This is financial negligence, Louis, you are jeopardizing my career." The absolute gall of that man. NGL, the texts were hard to read sometimes because they were exactly designed to pull on that old codependent fear: if I leave, my whole life collapses. But I just kept scrolling through the screenshots of the eBay chat. He's 22 and incredibly trusting. He thinks he's investing in your future. He's codependent on me. As long as I maintain the narrative that you are a struggling artist and he's helping us hit it big, he won't look too closely at the numbers. Every time I felt weak, I reread that. It's a miracle cure for stupidity, TBH. The main objective this weekend, aside from finding a lawyer who doesn't charge $500 an hour just to sigh dramatically, was getting that box. The one the fake script was being delivered in on Monday. The one Mark and Ella explicitly wanted me to open. I can't just go back to apartment 3B, obviously. Mark is likely camped out there waiting for me to show up, looking pathetic and remorseful. So Shannon and I enlisted backup. Ben 24M is my former coworker, a good friend, and thankfully Mark hates him. This is useful because Mark won't suspect Ben is working with me. Ben lives down the street from our old apartment and still has a key I gave him 2 years ago because Mark always locks himself out. So 2 days later, Monday morning, 11:30 a.m., Ben texted me a photo of a brown cardboard box sitting neatly on the step outside 3B. It was marked FEDEX priority. Ben text, got it. Did a tactical retrieval using the recycling bin for cover. Mark is nowhere to be seen. Where do I bring this bomb? Louis text, Shannon's place ASAP. Thank you, you are literally saving my sanity. When Ben walked into Shannon's tiny living room 30 minutes later holding the box like it contained plutonium, Shannon and I were practically vibrating with nervous energy. The box was about 18 inches long and surprisingly light. The shipping label clearly read, Shipper, E.G. Management LLC. Consignee Louis Oconor Apt 3B. Okay Louis, this is it, Shannon said, handing me a massive bread knife. Whatever is in here, it needs to be evidence, record it. I set my phone up on a stack of poetry books Mark would have called lowbrow, hit record, and took a deep breath. My hands were shaking so bad I almost sliced my finger off trying to cut the packing tape. I pulled back the flaps. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, was something that was definitely not a valuable signed script from Streetcar named Desire. It was a small, ornate wooden box, like a jewelry box but fancier. It was heavy. Underneath the box was a single, crisp, folded sheet of parchment paper sealed with red wax. I picked up the paper first. My name was handwritten on the outside to Louis, my co-star. I ripped the seal open and the message inside wasn't a script or a letter. It was a single printed contract, a marriage contract. My blood ran cold. It was titled Proposal of Perpetual Partnership, a Life of Artistry and Investment. It was drafted like some insane legalistic declaration of love, but the clauses were pure financial manipulation. It laid out a schedule of required investment contributions from me over the next 20 years, specifically requiring me to maintain a job that provides health insurance and stable income, while Mark was devoted to the pursuit of the arts. The final page had 2 lines for signatures, Mark Clark and Louis Oconor. It was insane. It wasn't just a scam, it was a plan to legally lock me into his lifestyle of sponging under the guise of marriage. He was going to propose publicly at the reception on Friday, using the fake script as the investment that made him worthy of my hand and the box as the ring box. No fucking way, Shannon whispered, snatching the contract. He was going to marry you just to keep access to your Trader Joe's paycheck and dental plan. The reaction they need, I choked out, staring at the empty space where the script should have been. The reaction they needed was me opening this in front of everyone, dissolving into tears and saying yes. He'd get his funding, his reputation as a romantic genius, and a guaranteed long-term sugar baby. Ella got her cut for staging the sale that provided the prop for the engagement. The level of planning, the sheer calculated cruelty of it, hit me harder than the financial theft. He saw my codependency and decided the best way to secure his future was to literally marry the problem. I picked up the ornate wooden box. It was slightly heavy. I unlatched the tiny gold clasp. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, was not a diamond ring. It was a single cheap plastic keycard, the kind hotels use, and under the keycard a note. The note was handwritten in Ella's very distinctive, elegant script. Louis, Mark wanted this to be a surprise. I told him it was bad acting. The key is to the storage unit in Trenton. Unit 47B, he keeps the good stuff there. Don't worry about the script. The actual prop we listed was a replica of his high school diploma. He keeps it in the office drawer bottom right. I froze. What is it, Louis? Shannon demanded, leaning over my shoulder. I read the note again, making sure I wasn't hallucinating. Ella, the accomplice, the mill from hell. She had left me a physical key and directions to a storage unit. Ella, she just gave me the key to Mark's secret storage unit, I said, voice flat. The mill from hell turned informant, Ben asked, completely baffled. I looked at the note again. It was signed not with Ella G Management, but simply EGY. Why would she do this? She was deep in the scam. She profited from the Zelle transfers. Shannon grabbed her car keys instantly. We are going to Trenton now. If she's turning on him, we need to know why and we need to exploit it. He's at rehearsal until 7 p.m. Let's move. I felt a rush of adrenaline. I thought I was ready for Friday, but this was a whole new level of complication. Fast forward 2 hours, Trenton NJ, Storage Unit 47B. The storage facility smelled like mildew and old cardboard. It felt appropriately dramatic. The key card worked instantly. Unit 47B was packed tight. It wasn't full of stolen goods or movie props. It was full of Mark's past. There were dozens of framed headshots, all slightly dusty, spanning 30 years, old theater programs, boxes labeled costumes, Lear and Reviews 1998-2005. But tucked way in the back behind a moth-eaten velvet curtain was a small metal safe. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Does he think he's James Bond? I muttered, pulling out the safe. It was heavy. Next to the safe, shoved under a pile of old theatrical makeup, was a massive battered leather ledger. I opened it immediately. It was an expenses journal meticulously kept in Mark's handwriting. It wasn't about acting roles. It was about his finances dating back 10 years. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking. It wasn't just my money he was taking. There were entries for JT investment and reimbursement FS with huge dollar amounts. Mark wasn't just a scammer. He was a serial targeted financial predator using his theatrical reputation to lure in people he deemed trusting. But the last few pages, the ones marked 2023-2024, were only about me and Ella. I found a note scrawled in the margin dated 3 weeks ago. Ella's getting too greedy, demanding 40% of the Louis O fund. Unacceptable, a small victory. Maybe Ella wasn't having a moral awakening. Maybe she was just pissed at the split. She wanted a bigger audience for Mark's downfall than just herself. We spent the next hour documenting everything. The ledger, the old bank statements, the tax documents showing huge undeclared cash gifts that were probably other scams. We left the safe untouched, deciding it was better to let law enforcement handle that. I drove back to Shannon's with a binder full of proof that Mark Clark wasn't just a terrible boyfriend. He was a career criminal who targeted codependent young men seeking escape. Tuesday, dealing with reality. Shannon's plan for public confrontation was great for my soul, but terrible for my legal standing. I spent $300 on a consultation with a lawyer named Brenda who looked like she hadn't slept since 1997. So Louis, Brenda said, tapping a pencil against the stack of screenshots, the eBay messages, the Zelle transfers, the marriage contract. The financial fraud is clear, but because you willingly gave him access to the account and willingly transferred the Zelle funds, this might fall into the gray area of gift giving unless we can prove explicit intent to defraud. In other words, I am screwed unless the public shame forces him to pay up, or unless I can tie this to a pattern of behavior. Luckily, I had the ledger now. The storage unit confirms a pattern of predation, I said, pulling out the printed ledger pages. Brenda's eyebrows went up. The level of detail he keeps is surprising. Okay, we can start filing for small claims court based on the pattern of fraud, but this will take months, and you need to secure your finances immediately. I had already done the basics, changed all my passwords, closed the joint savings account, which was empty anyway, thanks Mark, and put a freeze on my credit. What about the apartment? I asked. The lease was up in 3 months and both our names were on it. You need to formally notify the landlord you are vacating, Brenda advised. Since Mark is staying, he is responsible for the full rent until the lease terminates. You should not pay another penny. Relief washed over me. I wasn't homeless, I was just poor and living with my sister. I spent Tuesday night binge watching The Good Place and stress eating a full box of Triscuits. I had to focus on Friday. Everything hinged on Friday. Wednesday, the interruption. I was scrolling through old photos trying to delete everything that had Mark's smug face in it when I got a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, assuming it was more junk from Mark, but my curiosity got the best of me. It was a screenshot of an email, clearly sent from Ella Gupta to Mark Clark, dated this morning. Subject: regarding Friday, Mark, I need you to know I am officially pulling out of the showcase. My manager feels the prop investment narrative is too close to the bone given the history. I've already canceled my appearance at the Globe. I expect my final $1,000 payment for the listing fee by end of day today, or I will be discussing my concerns with the venue's manager. The text attached to the screenshot was short. Ella G text, he's lying to you about the split, Louis, and about other people, be careful with the safe. E.g., Ella was not only pulling out, she was actively threatening to expose Mark to the venue management if he didn't pay her off. She had flipped fully, not out of conscience, but because Mark was financially screwing her too. TBH, I found this immensely satisfying. This changed everything about Friday. Mark was going to be desperate. He was losing his star witness and his co-conspirator. He had already invited the investors and the theater bigwigs. He had to go through with the proposal even if the entire scheme was imploding. He had no choice but to rely on my predictable codependent meltdown. He's going to be expecting a sobbing, devastated Louis, I thought. He's going to be expecting me to run out of the room crying. Good. I went shopping that afternoon. I used the money I had been saving for a new gaming PC. I bought a charcoal gray suit tailored, not the bulky expense one Mark got me. I needed to look like someone who understood investment, not someone who was the investment. Thursday, the final prep, Shannon and I rehearsed. This sounds stupid, but Mark is an actor and I needed to be better than him. I went over every line, the accusations, the proof, the timeline. Shannon recorded me on her old DSLR camera so I could critique my delivery. I had to practice maintaining eye contact, controlling my breathing, and not letting the rage turn into a stammering mess. You are not Louis the sucker anymore, Shannon coached, making me stand on her dining room table to practice projecting my voice. You are Louis the investor, and Mark Clark is a terrible, terrible investment. I also drafted the email, the one I would send immediately after the confrontation. It contained all the evidence, the Zelle transfers, the eBay chat screenshots, and the terrifying marriage contract. I set the recipient list to include every single person on Mark's public email list that I had found on his iPad, producers, directors, theater reviewers, and a massive list of regional arts patrons. I didn't hear from Mark all day Thursday, which was terrifying in itself. It meant he was focused. He was crafting his performance. I finally managed to eat a decent meal, a burrito from a place Shannon swore by, and for the first time in a week I felt a flicker of the old Louis, the one who was determined, not just afraid. Friday, 5:00 p.m. The Globe Theater Reception Hall. The venue was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Exposed brick, mood lighting, and terrible modern art that probably cost more than my student loan debt. I was nervous, but the new suit felt like armor. I looked good, TBH. I looked like I was capable of managing my own finances. Shannon was waiting in the car, ready to zoom away if anything went wrong, and she had the binder full of evidence for backup. Remember the goal, Louis? She texted me 5 minutes before I walked in. Public exposure, protect yourself, and don't let him touch you. I walked in at 5:25 p.m. The hall was filling up with people I recognized from Mark's theater circles. Older, well-dressed, generally pretentious, and exactly the kind of people Mark needed to impress. Mark was standing near the makeshift stage, looking every bit the established, charming mentor. He was wearing his favorite bespoke navy jacket. He spotted me immediately. His face went through 3 distinct phases: shock, relief because he thought I was crawling back, and then pure theatrical concern. He immediately broke away from the group he was talking to, producer and a very prominent local critic, and rushed towards me. Louis, oh my God, Louis, where have you been? I've been frantic. He reached out to grab my arm, but I subtly shifted my weight, forcing him to keep his distance. I am fine, Mark, just needed some space to think, I said, my voice steady. It took every ounce of self-control I had not to scream the truth right there. Look wonderful, he said, the lie dripping with sincerity. Listen, about that money thing, we can talk about it tonight. Just let me get through this presentation first. I need you to be here for me, Louis. You are my rock who pays his bills. I'm looking forward to the presentation, I replied, grabbing a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter. Where is Ella? I thought she was presenting too. He stiffened. Ella had a scheduling conflict, typical young artists, flaky. But don't worry, I have the goods, the script is here and the investors are ready. He clearly hadn't paid her the $1,000, idiot. The reception started at 5:45 p.m. Mark took the stage. He launched into his Oscar-worthy monologue about the importance of investing in regional arts, the genius of Ella Gupta, who was conveniently absent, and the massive coup he had secured for the partnership. And tonight, Mark beamed, looking directly at me, I have the pleasure of presenting the physical proof of our venture's success. The incredibly rare signed script from Streetcar Named Desire, secured through a fierce bidding war, an investment that proves my commitment to Ella's vision and my commitment to the person who makes all of this possible. He held up the wooden box, the same box I had opened Monday. Louis, my partner, Mark continued, his voice swelling with false emotion. Please come up here, this isn't just about an investment, this is about a future, our future. The audience gave a smattering of polite applause. I walked toward the stage. Every step felt like walking through concrete. Mark opened the box, ready to present the key card that was supposed to represent the beginning of my financial servitude. I reached the stage, took the box from his hands, and Mark immediately tried to pull me into a hug, whispering, "Thank you, Louis. I knew you'd come back." I gently pushed him away. I kept my eyes on the audience. "Thank you, Mark," I said, my voice clear and amplified by the stage mic. I realized I was using my Trader Joe's loud cashier voice, which was excellent for projection. I turned the wooden box over in my hands. Mark is right, this box represents a future, just not the future he thinks. I opened the box dramatically and pulled out the single plastic key card. The audience started murmuring. It was clearly not a ring or a script. "This is not the rare script Mark claimed to have purchased for $4,500, I announced, holding up the key card. That entire transaction was a staged scam designed to funnel my wages from my job at Trader Joe's into an LLC managed by Ella Gupta, who Mark is now failing to mention quit this scheme because Mark tried to cheat her out of her cut." Mark's face went white. He opened his mouth to interrupt, but I didn't give him a chance. The $2,830 Mark claimed was tax maneuvering was actually the initial scam payment taken directly from my Zelle account. I paused for dramatic effect, referencing the script that wasn't there. This prop he's holding up now was meant to be the centerpiece of a public proposal, not a business deal. The script itself is a photocopy of his high school diploma, which he keeps in the bottom right drawer of his desk. I know because I was the one who bought the diploma replica for his birthday last year. The audience was silent. They were looking between me and Mark, who looked like a deer caught in the headlights of a very fast truck. But Mark's biggest mistake, I continued, feeling the adrenaline flood my system, was thinking that because I was codependent, I was stupid. He thought I would open this box, see the key, and cry with joy. Because this key, ladies and gentlemen, leads to Storage Unit 47B in Trenton. I looked directly at the producer who Mark had been talking to earlier. In that storage unit, you won't find valuable stage props. You'll find 3 decades of meticulous financial records detailing how Mark Clark uses his theatrical reputation to systematically target and defraud younger, financially unstable partners for their savings, their credit lines, and their health insurance. I have the ledger and the lawyer is already involved. Mark finally found his voice, high-pitched and panicked. "Louis, stop this, you are having a nervous breakdown. This is ridiculous, he's clearly unstable, ladies and gentlemen, he's just upset about a small disagreement. This is a nervous breakdown?" I laughed loud and sharp. I reached into my new suit jacket pocket and pulled out the crisp marriage contract, the one Mark had sealed with red wax. "This is not a nervous breakdown, Mark, this is evidence." I held the contract high. "This is a proposal of perpetual partnership, a marriage contract Mark intended to surprise me with tonight, to legally bind me to provide him with a stable income and health care for the next 20 years. Your goal wasn't to fund Ella's movie, Mark. Your goal was to secure your retirement, fund me." I tossed the contract into the air. It fluttered down right onto the table where the local critic was sitting. "I am Louis O'Connor," I finished, stepping back from the mic, feeling strangely calm. "And I am not your investment, I am not your co-star, and I am certainly not the sucker. I quit." I turned, walked off the stage, past the shocked, silent crowd, and headed straight for the exit. As I reached the door, I heard someone shout, "Mark, is this true?" And Mark's voice cracking, screaming, "Louis, don't you dare leave, you are ruining me." I didn't look back. I got in Shannon's Civic, slammed the door, and took a huge, shuddering breath. "You were magnificent," Shannon said, peeling out of the parking lot immediately. "Absolutely stellar, now hit send on that email." I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the send button on the draft email containing all the evidence and the narrative of his predatory history. I hit send. I felt a rush of pure, exhilarating freedom. The damage was done. Mark's reputation, his only currency, was toast. The fallout post-Friday the ensuing week was a whirlwind of legal back-and-forth texts and social media explosions. The email went viral within his tight-knit theater community. By Saturday morning, the local critic, whose name I won't mention but is very influential, had already posted a cryptic but damning summary on their blog, referencing the disturbing ethical decay observed at the Globe Theater. Mark called 93 times. He left voicemails that cycled through begging, demanding, threatening, and finally, a terrifyingly calm one where he said, "You are nothing without me, Lou, you will starve." I just forwarded the voicemails to Brenda the lawyer. Ella, meanwhile, continued to communicate via burner texts. "Ella G text, he's telling people I set him up. LOL, good luck with the lease, he changed the locks. BTW, I got my $1,000, public humiliation works." I realized Ella and I were temporary, transactional allies united by a common enemy. She wasn't seeking redemption, she was seeking profit and avoiding fallout. Fine by me. The logistical nightmare began in earnest. Since Mark changed the locks, I had to coordinate with the landlord to legally retrieve the rest of my stuff, which required police presence. On Tuesday, I went back to 3B with two uniformed officers, Shannon and Ben. Mark was there, looking haggard, unshaven, and furious. "You snake," he hissed when he saw me. "You owe me everything. You are breaking our agreement." "We had no agreement, Mark," I said calmly, pointing to a stack of Trader Joe's boxes. "These are my things. I'm taking them now." He tried to argue with the police about the stolen documents, the ledger, but the officers just told him it was a civil matter and he needed to back away from me. I packed up my life in silence. It felt surreal, like cleaning out a stranger's messy apartment. I found the fake diploma script where I left it, bottom right drawer. I took it to proof. A week later, the new normal. I am typing this from my new apartment. It is a shoebox studio in a cheaper but much safer neighborhood. It is entirely mine. The paint is peeling and the landlord is terrible, but the Wi-Fi password is a quote from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the only other person with a key is Shannon. I call that a massive upgrade. Financially, I am still recovering. The small claims court filing is active, but Brenda says don't hold my breath on seeing the full $4,500 anytime soon. I'm working double shifts at Trader Joe's again, but this time the money goes into my account for my rent. I even started a proper budget using a spreadsheet. NGL, it's boring, but it's liberating. The biggest change, though, is the feeling in my stomach. The constant low-level anxiety that I was failing Mark or that he would abandon me is gone. It's been replaced by a quiet, steady determination. My family called, of course. My mother, completely missing the point, sent me a card saying I need to forgive those who trespass against you and included a $20 bill. I donated the $20 to a local atheist charity. Shannon, though, has been a rock. She made me admit out loud that I knew Mark was a manipulator for months, but I stayed because the alternative, going back to my family, felt worse. That wasn't love, Louie, she told me over cheap pizza last night. That was just trading one prison for a slightly prettier one. She's right, my codependency wasn't about Mark, it was about the deep, bone-aching need for a safe space away from my religious guilt and judgment. Mark saw that weakness, packaged it, and sold it back to me. I still have bad days. Sometimes I wake up in panic, thinking I need to check Mark's calendar or make sure he has gas money. That feeling takes a few minutes to shake off, but when I do, I remind myself, I chose to be uncomfortable, to be uncertain, to be financially stressed, rather than live another day in a lie. Update on the scammers. Mark Clark has been largely blacklisted from the regional theater scene. Several major arts patrons withdrew funding from projects he was peripherally involved in. He tried to sue me for defamation, but Brenda just sent him copies of the Zelle receipts and the marriage contract, and his lawyer dropped him. Last I heard, he's moved in with his older sister in Ohio and is focusing on screenwriting, which is theatrical code for unemployed and delusional. Ella Gupta. She's fine, annoyingly. She used the fallout to spin a narrative about escaping a toxic, controlling older manager. She's already gotten a small part in a commercial. She's still a horrible person who scammed me, but she taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes your enemy's greed can be your best defense. I did Venmo request her for that $150 wine fee just for the pettiness of it. She rejected it and sent back a single emoji, which I won't use here, but it was aggressive. I'm focused on finishing my degree part-time now. I changed my major from liberal arts to accounting. Yes, it's boring, but I need to understand exactly where every penny is going so no one can ever do this to me again. I am not the emotionally vulnerable, easily manipulated 19-year-old who met Mark Clark. I'm the guy who walked onto a stage, called out a fraud, and dismantled 2 years of elaborate manipulation in front of an audience of rich patrons. That felt better than any amount of money. I'll probably delete this account soon. I don't need the validation anymore. I just wanted to close the loop for those of you who read part 1 and were worried. I'm okay. I'm not fixed, I'm not rich, and I definitely still cry in the shower sometimes, but yesterday I laughed at a stupid TikTok about a dog wearing tiny shoes and I realized, yeah, I'm going to be completely okay. I am free, and that's the best investment I ever made. We'll update if Mark ever tries to cross state lines or mail me another wooden box. Peace out, Reddit.